So welcome again to our Mazama's annual meeting as we figure out the complexities of being both in person and on Zoom at the very same time. I am Kayleen Dethridge, your interim executive director. We've got about 15 or so of us here at the MMC and another 40 or so people joining us on Zoom tonight. So thank you for giving up part of your evening to hear the Mazama State of the Union, which is an important event as we look at where we've been in the last year and where we're headed in the year to come. Just a couple of housekeeping mechanics. For those of you that are on Zoom tonight, if you have questions that you want to post, if you'll put them in the Q&A, tonight's call will be recorded, so anybody that doesn't get to join us will have a chance to watch it later. For those of you here in the room, backed by the cookies and the sodas, we shouldn't tell that to the people that are on Zoom, there are some blank blue sheets and some ink pens. So if you have any questions tonight, feel free to write those down. In the interest of time, because we have a lot of reports to go through, we won't take live questions tonight, but we do commit to taking all the questions that we get here at the MMC, as well as those that we get on Zoom, and we will respond to all of those in the next week. So please feel free to let us know if something we talk about tonight raises a question for you. So with that, I want to start by inviting a few of our board members to share our board reports, and then we will do some committee reports, and we'll talk a little bit about what's coming down the pike for Mazama's in the next year. And of course, we will end the night with the long-awaited election results. So all of that is coming. We will go first to David Urbaniak, who is our treasurer on the board, and ask David to give us our finance and treasurer's report. It's all yours, David.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. And sorry I couldn't be there in person. I was actually just catching a flight back, and it actually worked out well for me that we were running a few minutes late. So hopefully you all can hear me. I'll maybe just pause and see if I get a thumbs up from Kayleen.
This is going to be fun. David, we can hear you. We're just trying to make you a little louder here at the end.
Okay, that sounds good.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you're good to go now.
Awesome. Who's ever controlling the slides, can you flip forward? Awesome. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is David Urbaniak. I've been on the board for about a year. And during that year, I've also been in the treasurer role. You know, I think the update I would want to give you tonight is a bit of a mixed bag. You know, I think we've made a lot of forward progress in terms of kind of operating models and how we get our financials done on a month-to-month basis. You know, we've made some changes to try to simplify our finances, to make them easier to interpret, to try to have a little less overhead with them, to consolidate from a platform perspective. You may not all be, you know, how do I want to say it? Those are maybe not the sexy or exciting things about from a financial perspective, but they're important in terms of kind of operating Mazama's as a business on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm excited that we've made some changes on that front. When I think more about the update I'd want to give you more from a financial perspective is one of, I'll say a few things. I think we've done a great job from a cost containment perspective in 2022. You know, I think we all experience gas price increases, food price increases. You know, I think that's across the board, and we're experiencing it at the Mazama's as well in some regards. But we've done a nice job to the extent possible that we can to control our costs. What I would say from kind of an opportunities or learnings perspective is that our revenue continues to be flat. And, you know, I think the cautionary comment I would have about that is that there will need to be work in the coming year as to how we might address that. And there's multiple ways I think we can look at approaching that, but it's something that I think as an executive committee that we'll need to dive into, along with partnering with all of you to determine how we can go about doing that. the other thing I would want to say from an opportunity and learnings perspective, and if you're all looking at your 401k plans and other investment portfolios, you probably have what you're experiencing with your personal accounts is probably what we're experiencing here at the Mazamas in some regards. From an investment portfolio perspective, you can see on the lower left there kind of where our balance lies. So around 963,000. That's down from 1.2 and some change through end of August last year. I think that, I don't know if I have much more to say about it than that, than just sort of like, I think that's reflective of just kind of what the broader market conditions are. And to the extent possible, we'll partner with Joe and others to see how we can continue to optimize and improve that in the future. On the right, I think the thing I would want to call out from the visual is that, my earlier comments around revenue continues to be flat. And relative to say, if thinking of Mazamas as a business and some businesses and the current environment that are going down, one could say that that's a positive, at least in the current market. But relative to, I think, where our expenses are and that they do continue to increase, it's something that we need to be mindful of when we think about where we're at, how we've been addressing that in previous years. And this predates this particular board, and it's been going on for a period of time, is that we've been drawing down our investments to address any budget shortfalls. And one of the things that we talked about as an executive committee is trying to address that with this year, the upcoming 2022-2023 budget, and trying to balance that budget. So I would say that the one of the considerations from a budget perspective as well is that to address that, one of the things we wanted to do is try to tie in the overhead from the broader organization into each of the committee and program budgets, so that there's a little bit more transparency and visibility into what it takes to run Mazamas as a business, and think of ourselves as one organization in totality versus, say, running one program versus another and having to be only mindful of that given program. It's pretty critical that we think of all of our programs and kind of as a whole of organization versus kind of the separate pieces. So I think that would be the other thing I want to mention about this slide. So those are some of the highlights and opportunities and learnings. Another way to say maybe opportunities and learnings is lowlights, but I generally don't like to frame it that way. So take that as you will. If you could flip to the next slide, a little bit more specifically about revenue year to date. A couple call outs. We continue, at least for this year, to track less than the budgeted planned revenue amount. Where the material deficit is on that front is on activity in individual donations. And in particular, when we say 39 of expected budget, that's a material delta in terms of what we would think we would be driving from activities and versus kind of what's actually coming in. And I think this might be some hangover a bit from COVID and still continuing to try to ramp up on activities and people kind of just getting back out. So from an individual donations perspective, I don't know if I have any sort of anecdotal comments around that at this time, but again, tracking below what we'd expect relative to individual donations. If you could flip to the next. And again, the positive that I would say within 2022 in a otherwise kind of challenging macro financial environment is that we have again done a really excellent job around cost containment. Expenses are 66% of what we budgeted for the year, and so our actual right now is 737,000. That's through, I believe, the end of August, versus the budgeted of 1,042,000 and some change. So again, we're about 280, spent about 280 less than what we did in previous years. So I see that as really being a positive and something for the viability and longevity of the organization we will have to be mindful of. So those are my updates for the year. I think my parting comments would be, as we think about how to try to look at that revenue line, I think we would want to partner with certainly the committees and those folks who are on from various committees around how we might adjust this. I think it's going to be a collective effort, and that might look like not to be solution oriented here, but just to take a second on that, it might look like increasing specific program fees. It might be looking at, are there other programs that we could offer? There's been some fun things when I've seen, I think, some additional one-time classes being offered. I think there's a lot of different ways we can solve this as an organization. But for the year ahead, I think the executive council and myself, from a treasurer perspective, hope that we can partner with all of you to try to find out how we might solve the revenue problem. So with that, Kayleen, I'll turn it back over to you.
You get my exercise today. This is good. All right. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate that. David's been awesome to work with this year. Obviously, thinking about how we can improve our financial position and develop a more robust revenue stream is a really important part of our path to a sustainable future. So I'm really grateful for David's partnership on that. Next up, we have our board member, Greg Scott, to give us our secretary's report.
Thank you, Kayleen. What we have up here is a slide that kind of breaks down our 2022 membership. We had just over 2,700 members this year, which tracks pretty closely with the year prior, so that's good news. Sort of the unfortunate trend in this slide, which I just want to call out, is that we're a little bit upside down on full paying members versus reduced paying members. And that's been a trend that's been occurring over the last 2 years. So what this slide doesn't show you is that there are about 1,427 members, over half the membership, that's paying a reduced rate, that being a life member, or not a life member, a spouse, student, or youth, or honorary member, and with only 1,301 full paying members. So that's a trend we want to take a look at in the coming year with the executive council. So, and this is just showing our membership trend. So that 2023 is a little bit misleading. We still have about a month left in our membership drive for this year. It is a little bit down from this time last year. I think this time last year when we had this meeting, we had about 1,500. So we do want to get above that trend. So I want to remind everybody, if you haven't renewed your membership, please do that by October 31st. And I think that's all I have to say on the secretary report. Thank you.
All right, next up is our board chair, Jesse Applegate. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending our 2022 annual meeting. Just wanted to kind of share some of my thoughts. This time last year was kind of a pretty hefty time of uncertainty for the Mazamas. Had the ongoing pandemic, and it kind of definitely affected our programming significantly and how we traditionally run it. We were looking at and experiencing the exit of our permanent and acting executive directors in the last year, followed by several staff personnel in the next few months. We also had our ongoing deficit spending that was not coming to any sort of resolution. And probably most importantly, a kind of a lack of awareness amongst the membership, and then an assumption that there will always be somebody there to run things and make sure everything's going to continue to run. So the executive council reached out for help, and we spoke with Page 2 Partners, a firm specializing in nonprofits and helping them with challenges similar to ours. And we worked with Liz Field, who did a focused strategic assessment for us with the purpose of identifying organizational strengths and challenges to provide recommendations to help our position and our organization. Mainly to implement a sustainable leadership model going forward. We hope to share this full assessment by tomorrow on our website. In a couple of the town hall meetings we had several months ago, we shared some of the or at least the list of recommendations. There were 11 of them, and the ones that we decided to focus on. And I'll go over those shortly. So some of the key points from the assessment were in 2014, the Mazamas launched an ambitious strategy designed to grow the organization. And that was to meet the growing demand in the greater climbing community. We see this today in like climbing gyms and places like that. Also, at the crags everywhere. To accomplish this, the Mazamas invested significant funding and boosted staffing from about 3.5 people in 2013 to a height of 12.5 in 2018. We currently employ 4.5 staff members. These efforts were responsible for some growth in programming, including the beginning of our youth programming, the development of IT systems, and the new website. But membership did not grow as intended. It declined from close to 3,800 in 2014 to around 3,500 5 years later. And now after 2.5 years of the pandemic, we're down to about 2,750 in 2022. By 2020, we had drawn down net assets of the foundation and organization from a combined total of 3.6 million in 2013 to 1 million in 2020. In addition to this significant financial decline, the organization has undergone a series of leadership changes. As I noted previously, we've had the pandemic, grappled with issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, faced considerable division in terms of our identity. Are we an exclusive club or a public serving nonprofit? And we underwent significant staff turnover. So pretty serious challenges there. So these realities have brought the Mazamas to a critical juncture where, in order to survive, we must set the course to achieve a sustainable future. The assessment report also highlighted the strengths we have. So it's not all bad. Our reputation and history and engaged membership with a commitment to volunteering and long established friendships that foster a shared sense of community. Partnerships across the community, the state, the Northwest, and beyond. Longstanding respected programming that attracts members and non-members alike. The MMC and our beloved lodge, and a small but mighty staff who have put down roots in the organization and bring a passion for delivering our mission. The assessment report included 11 recommendations for action, and over the past 10 months, we've focused strategically on 6 of them. So those were recommendation number 2, the Executive Council should strengthen their capacity in financial oversight and planning in order to maintain and rebuild the Mazama's financial assets. Thanks, Keeleen, for telling me to advance the slides. Okay, so that was recommendation number 2 out of 11. So progress on that. David and Keeleen have worked closely together with both the Finance Committee and our bookkeeping firm to understand and assess our fiscal performance. And they've identified places we can scale back spending and increase revenues. They've also been working this summer to design a new, simplified, and more effective budgeting model, which will generate fiscal reporting and improve the ability of the directors and staff, of EC and staff, to make better financial decisions. And most importantly, take timely corrective action if our budget is underperforming. I'll note that one of those was the graph that David shared, and I particularly found that very helpful in seeing like where are the general areas we're spending money on. So I was really grateful to see that implemented this year. Of the specials or focus assessment that we chose to, of the 6 items, was recommendation number 3, the The executive director, in consultation with others, should initiate new approaches to program/activity pricing and revenue generation to improve the bottom line. So on that item, under Kayleen's guidance, with the involvement of program staff and the board, we've begun the process of fully costing our programs and activities to understand the true costs, inclusive of allocable overhead. Previously, we didn't really know how much it cost us to run things as far as staff time and other overhead. So we've begun that to implement accounting for that going forward. We're also assessing our capacity to add more hikes, climbs, and classes to better serve members, attract new members, and earn more revenue. We're researching new opportunities to earn revenue, such as designing new programs or classes that may have higher profit margins. Next recommendation that we chose to focus on was number 5, which was the board should appoint an interim executive director whose work should focus on leading and supporting staff, rebuilding the team. Let's see, I should probably advance the slide here. Yeah. Not quite yet. So hire an interim executive director, and we did that hiring Kayleen in December last year. She'll stay with us until we hire our new permanent executive director next year. We also focused on recommendation number 7. The board leadership in collaboration with the executive director and others should move forward with a process to clearly define respective roles, reporting, and decision-making authorities of volunteer leaders, staff, and the board. So this is our classic like roles and responsibilities question that we've struggled with for a long time. And this has been an ongoing effort. As examples of progress, Kayleen and Brooke Harris, the Lodge Committee Chair, are working together to develop a new operational model for the Lodge and revise the role of the Lodge Committee, improve collaboration, and determine which scopes of work are most effectively volunteer committee led and which are best staff led. This topic is one we've returned to throughout this year as we think strategically with full awareness that it will require active volunteer engagement and the full capabilities of our staff to help the Mazamas get back onto stable footing with a viable plan for the future. Let's see, next should be 8. Recommendation 8, which was executive council should develop and move ahead with a well-planned process / timeline to resume discussions regarding the bylaws changes. And on that, in addition to addressing our serious financial realities, restating our bylaws to improve our governance structure and engaging in fully transparent conversations with all of you, Mazama's key stakeholders, about the need for change and the risk to our continued viability as a nonprofit organization has been a major effort this year. There'll be more, we'll share more about that later in the meeting. Let's see. And then recommendation number 10, which was executive council in partnership with the executive director should develop and lead a well-planned proactive approach to improve communications and help support and maintain positive, cohesive community dynamic and engaged membership. So this is about like maintaining that sense of community that we all are motivated to be here by. And this is an ongoing initiative and one that we recognize is like critical. We were delighted to add Gina Bonneau as our team to our team earlier this year. Gina is responsible for our weekly bookkeeping tasks, and with an extensive journalism and communications background, she's been a huge assistance in reviving our social media channels, helping us to better publicize events and happenings. And she is great at always reminding us to think about building a robust communication strategy, and hopefully help me with my public speaking. Let's see, and communication strategy into each of the efforts that we undertake. There's more work to do in this area, clearly with me, and we are happy to have Gina's help as we become more proactive with our approach to communications. So those are the 6 main recommendations from the focused assessment that we have been spending all of our time on this year. So looking at, here we are from a year ago, present day. So currently I would say that the awareness of our need to change from our present course has increased. Like, I get the sense that people generally realize that we need to change. We're sharing the focused assessment. We hope it will further motivate people to join our efforts, because we want you to understand like that what's happening, and we want your help to make it happen. In the past, we've operated under the assumption that only simple changes will be sufficient. However, we're learning, and hopefully you will too, in the focused assessment and also just through your own experiences, that often like life isn't simple and simple changes aren't going to be enough for us. And a lot of this effort isn't necessarily the fix to it all. So what it will do is enable us to make the real changes that we want. And there's a whole sea of opportunity in that. Just know that this is an incremental process, and we have to be patient and persistent, kind of like climbing. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to Kayleen and the staff and the executive council for your help and dedication. I've learned a ton, and it's been an honor. So thank you. I'll hand it back to Kayleen.
Jesse, thank you. It is a big job to take on the chairmanship of a board. And it's a big job in a nonprofit when everything is going according to plan and the coffers are full, and membership is robust. It's a bigger job. It's a harder challenge when you're facing a current environment that has some challenges in it. You know, you spend a lot of your time problem solving, the fundraising and the administrative or the operational side of the organization, and often find yourself a little bit farther away from the mountains that you'd like to be out there climbing. So Jesse, sincerely, really appreciate the chance to work with you this last year, and just the leadership. And what I appreciate particularly is Jesse's determination that we can be a more effective and more efficient organization, and that we can figure out the best solutions to the problems that we face, because this organization is amazing and has been around for 125 years, you know, plus. And we want to make sure that we're setting the seeds for the next 125 years. So to Jesse and to the board, I just really want to recognize the leadership and the vision and the persistence to move us through this, and hope you all join me in gratitude for their service. So I think the other thing that I really want to emphasize tonight, in addition to the phenomenal work of the board, is the phenomenal work of your small but mighty staff. You are 4.5 people right now, 4.5 FTE, and really, you know, a year ago, before I joined you all, I think your staff was quite a bit bigger, and the roles were pretty defined, right? Everybody kind of had their lane. There are no more lanes. We just do this now, and everybody rises to the occasion and does what needs to be done. And to me, that I couldn't think of a better way to a better staff makeup than a staff of individuals who care enough about the mission of the Mazamas that they simply have stepped up to do what needs doing. So to Matthew and Brendan and Gina and Ryan, who just finished his time with us up on the mountain, I just want to say thank you very much. There is no way that we would have gotten through all the things that needed to happen this year with a smaller team were it not for their willingness to simply be available to answer a million questions from myself and Gina about how do we do this and how do we make this work and how does that system work. So Brendan and Matthew have put a ton of time into helping support your newer staff members in getting going. And if you remember just all the things that we do in an annual fiscal year, right? We run all of our classes and activities. There's that time of year when we do our master class scheduling. We renew memberships every year. We keep our lodge running. We manage our elections process, which is just wrapping up today. We get a bulletin out every other month. We have a website and social media and a weekly e-news that go out. We are working routinely, not only with the Mount Hood Forest, where we have robust operations, but as you all are aware, with several other forests that are extremely important to our organization. We put on a volunteer appreciation event this year, are carrying out an annual fundraising campaign and hope to do another one end of year, hint, hint, everybody. We are supporting our members and we're taking care of all of our bookkeeping. So that's just the list that was top of mind when I thought about all of the things that we've been doing this year. I also want to share a little bit about my observations. So having been with you all now for 10 months, just to pause and reflect and say, this is a really wonderful organization. And I have met many of you, and many of you I have yet to meet, but to a person, everybody has been really wonderful. And your commitment to this mission, the energy that you bring to the Mazamas and your care for this organization is infectious. And I feel it, and I'm honored to get to be a part of helping you make that mission strong. And I share your desire to make sure that this organization continues to do its great work and serve its members for decades to come. And so I was thinking about the strengths that I have noted over these past 10 months. And I would say our staff, our board, our Mazamas members, everybody who comes to us and takes one of our classes, just really wonderful people. The passion for climbing. I have had more invitations to go climbing in the last 10 months than I could possibly say yes to. And I'm so grateful for that. I mean, I love that you guys are so eager to share what you care about with other people. I think that's part of the Mazama's ethos, more than other outdoor organizations really have. This organization and its members are passionate about teaching more people to love and enjoy and experience the mountains. And that is an absolutely phenomenal strength that you can draw upon. You've got engaged volunteers. I've worked in a lot of different nonprofits, and I see volunteers involved in the delivery of the mission all the time. But I gotta tell you, Mazama members, you guys that take it to a whole new level. I mean, without all of you, there isn't programming at the Mazamas. And we on the staff team know that. So our tremendous gratitude for the hours and the thinking and the hours here in this building and the hours on your computers and other places where you put your time to get to the days when you're out on the mountain and out on the trail, making it happen for others. I also really appreciate the board. In addition to many years serving on the staff side of nonprofits, I also sit on a board now, and I'm the board chair of a $7 million nonprofit. And it is a lot of work to serve on the board. Very good for somebody who's been on the staff side for years to sit on the board side of the table and see it from a different perspective. But it's a big commitment, and nonprofits thrive or struggle on the strength of their board. So one of my hopes for this organization is that board service continues to be something that grows, and that all of you really think about who are the people that you need, the skill sets, the attributes, the community connections that are going to help you take the organization to the next level. I'd love to see it where you have to go through an incredibly careful discernment process about, you know, who is coming next onto the board, because you have so many qualified people to choose from, and you do. Many of you out there, very qualified. So I think that is going to help the organization to grow. And as you work those networks, it's a great opportunity to bring new people into the organization, either as members or hopefully also as donors, because we could use some more of those as well. So just a little bit about the opportunities and challenges. Jesse hit on those really well, and so I'll just touch on them quickly. I'm really excited about the work that we're doing to remodel your budget, to improve your financial reporting, particularly when you're facing a deficit. It's essential that you have timely reports with good data that help you make informed decisions. So I'm really excited to see a new budget model get introduced. And there are a number of people, David Urbaniak, Ms. Crow, our bookkeeping firm, and others, Jesse, who have put a lot of time into helping us make those transitions. I also think, as we've mentioned, and we're going to talk a lot more about in the next few months, looking at our governance structure and our bylaws and how those limit us and how those could empower us, and really thinking together about the governance model that's going to give you the very best chance to grow, to stabilize your finances, and to continue to be an incredibly relevant, historically significant nonprofit in this community far, far into the future. I'm excited to see you guys be able to put together a more diverse fundraising package in the future. Right now, a lot of your revenue comes from classes, activities, and memberships. And while that's great, and while we want to grow that as much as we can, it puts tremendous pressure on those two activities if that's the bulk of your revenue. So if we can adjust our model so that we can be more effective at writing grants, maybe at event fundraising, at cultivating new donors and getting them to engage regularly by making at least an annual gift, that's really going to help you to have what I would call a fundraising structure that's not made up of one or two really big rocks, but lots of granularity, a whole bunch of small rocks. And that way, if one goes away, it's not quite so devastating to your financial picture. So that's a real opportunity. I think from my perspective, you have so many opportunities. So you can choose to see them as threats, or you can see them as opportunities to create the future that you want. And I think unaddressed, those threats could make it harder and harder for Mazamas to be viable. But with your collective alignment around moving the organization in a healthy direction, you're going to grow, and you're going to move past, the current challenges and be able to look back a couple years from now and say, wow, look what we did to make sure that this organization is going to be here long after all of us were gone. So thank you for the opportunity to work with you. I'm excited about where we'll go in the next 6 months, excited to help you think about who your next permanent director is. And again, just really grateful for the chance to partner with you and help the organization be successful. So now let's move to our committee reports. Because I have not met everybody who are committee chairs in person, I may or may not know whether or not you're in the room or on Zoom. So we'll just roll with it. But first up tonight is a report from our adventurous young Mazamas and Heather Polonsky. Okay.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes. We can hear you, Heather.
Awesome, perfect. So yeah, my name's Heather. I'm one of the 4 co-chairs of the Adventurous Young Mazamas. I'm also one of the 4 committee members. Our committee is just set up so that all 4 of us kind of just share responsibility. And for those of you who don't know, the Adventurous Young Mazamas are the group for people who are in like their 20s and 30s or young at heart. And we try to have events for people who identify in that age group or lifestyle. And we try to do a variety of hikes, snowshoes, cross-country skis, other types of activities like climb nights at local climbing gyms, and pub nights, just so people can get to know each other. As far as our annual report and like where we're at, we really tried to take this year as an opportunity to rebuild after like COVID had really slowed things down for our members. So we're trying to ramp things up. We were able to host our big annual event again, Winter Weekend. This year we called it Winter Palooza, because rather than have an overnight thing, because it was happening in February when there was a big Omicron surge, or Delta, I don't know, whichever COVID surge it was then. We had a one-day activity where there was, I think, 3 or 4 different snow-related things happening, be it snowshoe, cross-country skiing, and then also some alpine touring. And then we all met up at the lodge afterwards for some dinner and socializing. So that was really excited to have that again. We have also started hosting more hikes again, which has been great. We have a couple of new hike leaders who seem enthusiastic and eager to do more things, as well as we've brought back our monthly pub nights, which is just an opportunity for people to meet each other during the week in like a non-outdoor setting. Well, it's outdoors because it's at an outdoor like food truck pod, but just a way for people to meet each other and just talk about adventuring and hiking and climbing and all those fun things. And moving forward for the next year, we're looking to better collaborate with other committees at the Mazamas. So I've attended diversity, equity, inclusion committee meeting. We're trying to see if we can collaborate with BSEP and Climb Committee. So just so you know, guys, we'll be reaching out to see if there's more ways we can engage people in our activities. And that is it. So yeah.
Thank you, Heather. All right, next up, we have BSEP and Joe Preston.
Hello. So I am the BSEP chair as of like 2 months ago. And I'm not throwing him under the bus here, but most of the hard work for BSEP this last year was done by John Sturbis, who is totally awesome, has been super helpful in our transition. So I want to make sure he gets all the credit where it's due. And then to echo kind of what Jesse and Kayleen have said tonight, I know at least in the very short time I have been trying to do this, I could not do it without the support of the staff. I think I'm in Brendan's ear pretty much every day, if not, you know, every other day or so. So, and I'm looking forward to working with the rest of you all. So I just am so thankful for you and the team leaders. And then now the BSEP committee, we have like 18 plus people on the committee right now. So over the last year, with some of those folks, we have continued to develop the sort of online learning experience element of BSEP through what's called the Basecamp website. We had 20 plus teams with like 192 students that we brought in. And then there was like 3 affinity teams among those. And then we are also, we are also now subdividing up some of the tasks and the focus of the BSEP committee into some subcommittees to focus on some of the key areas of keeping the BSEP session running smoothly and making sure all the improvements that we want to make can get made. The committee is already starting planning for BSEP 2023. I know a lot of the climb leaders should have gotten some requests to information on leading the teams and stuff. Scheduling's happening. Improvements with the way we're going to interact with volunteers and the leaders is happening. So a lot of excitement for 2023. And I just wanted to add that if anyone has questions or feedback, I'm super eager to talk to team leaders and climb leaders. You can reach out to us at bsep@mazamas.org.
As long as I don't fall off the edge of the stage, it'd be good. Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate that. All right, next up we have climbing with Guy Wetstein and Trey Schutron.
Right, thank you. Yes, this Guy Wetstein here. I'm the climbing committee outgoing chair. Trey Schutron will be taking over chair duties this week or throughout the month, and I'll be transitioning to secretary. In that role going forward, I intend to do more regular communication with the climbing leaders and leadership development participants. Trey will be, excuse me, onboarding this month, and the rest of the committee remains the same with Leora Gregory, Chris Ledoux, Courtney Rust, and George Cummings serving. This past fiscal year, we offered just over 200 climbs, and those were led by 51 individual leaders. Of course, climbs are routinely canceled due to weather and smoke and fire and other normal challenges. But we're also now facing access issues in Gifford Pinchot, excuse me, Gifford Pinchot and Baker Snoqualmie National Forest in particular, where land managers have ordered Mazamas to cease operations of activities. And so unfortunately, that's resulted in a number of climbs being canceled and prevented other climbs from being scheduled. So this is clearly an ongoing concern for the climbing program and other Mazamas programs that operate in those areas. And we're following Executive Council's lead on that to try to achieve some resolution. As far as highlights, on the topic of leadership development, Leora Gregory has done a fantastic job of running our program for developing new leaders. We added 20 new LD candidates this year, which was twice as many as last year. And that makes a total of 57 participants. We promoted 3 of those participants to provisional climb leader, 6 of them to full climb leader, and 1 leader was promoted from a C-level climb leader to an E-level climb leader. So we're happy that these new candidates and promotions represent an increasingly broad spectrum of identities. And the climbing committee, of course, remains committed to drawing leadership candidates from the diverse climbing community. Moving forward, the climbing committee seeks new additional members. And specifically, we need someone who is a climb leader who can help manage the continuing education for climb leaders. And this involves monitoring badge expirations and then coordinating recertification opportunities for climb leaders so that folks are ready to lead with their certifications up to date. So anyway, that's all I have, and thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Guy. Next up, we have our diversity, equity, and inclusion report. And for that, Chris Ledoux and Dan Zawistowski.
Okay. This is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Just getting my starting. Dan and I are currently acting as co-chairs of the committee. I'm going to try to talk about things I think are the most important. DEI work happens in our committee, in other committees that members are part of, and within the community. Our members that are on other committees were able to bring conversations about DEI, that is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and their understanding of it into different places where decisions are made. Over the past year, some ways included student selection, application design, creating alternative cultures, and identifying problems and opportunities to bring back to the committee. We also added a DEI webpage that can be found under membership and resources. Prioritizing equity is vital in being able to serve a broader group of people. Equity is about how we meet the needs of the community to ensure that individuals with different needs, resources, and barriers have what they need in order to fully participate. Our current priority is an ongoing project to create better support for affinity spaces and groups. Affinity groups build community in an ongoing manner. Activity spaces are safe spaces that occur as instances, such as for an event, activity, or an affinity BSEP team. Both are necessary. We have an opportunity to evolve from being a large, affluent, able-bodied organization, both in leadership and participation. I've heard several other people talking about this tonight, trying to increase diversity. To do this, we need spaces in which people are part of communities that have been historically underserved, feel safe, and have opportunities that help them gain experience, build confidence, and develop leadership skills. Spaces for Affinity Team BSEP graduates to continue their Mazama's involvement when BSEP ends through affinity space hikes, climbs, activities, and more, and joining affinity groups. Affinity groups to support the ongoing need for community for students in classes, supporting their learning through connection with program alumni in the affinity groups, as well as to meet their social needs. We want to recognize Ebony, who stepped back from co-chairing the committee in May, for the work she put into the group, her contributions to the understanding, awareness, and putting into practice of DEI within the organization, and for the development of ideas and helping to build a foundation for our committee. We always welcome new members and appreciate all who are making decisions and designing programs with DEI in mind. You can always send us an email, dei@mazamas.org, and we'll try to answer the questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. And next up to talk about first aid, we have Duncan Hart.
Thank you, Kayleen. My name is Duncan Hart. I'm your first aid committee coordinator here for the Mazamas on my second year. And on behalf of the committees, I want to thank Kayleen for introducing the SWOT model, as you spoke to. So in my committee report, I'm going to speak to the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for first aid. So from a strength standpoint, we had 200 graduates of Mazama first aid courses. We delivered 25 courses this year in CPR, hike leader first aid, wilderness first aid, and mountain first aid. So that's quite an accomplishment. We grew the number of classes last year. We will continue to grow the number of classes going forward is our current plan. All of our classes are taught by nationally qualified instructors. We talk about Mazamas being an education organization. That's something that I hope you are all proud about, that we continue to attract and retain high quality instructors for ourselves. I especially want to thank some of our outgoing instructors, our CPR instructors, Mike Levis, Rena Clements, and I also want to a big shout out to Jess Joyner, who has been our registrar for our classes for the last 3 years. Many thanks to them. Some of the weaknesses that we have is our ability to attract CPR instructors. CPR instructors require it's called a BLS qualification. That's been very problematic in the local community. They just aren't offering that kind of training. We've had some stumbles with some of our CPR classes. We have some hope for a couple of Mazamas have stepped forward, are self-funding themselves to get this qualification. So that has been a struggle for us. We would love to give free education to everyone in Mazamas for first aid classes. I wish we were in a financial position to do that, but the reality is we aren't. We do target the pricing of our classes to be at or below market. Unfortunately, we've had a number of classes with no-shows. We've had to go back to the Trail Trips and Climbing Committee, make a recommendation that all leaders have to pay up front. Once they complete their requirements, they can submit a reimbursement to your committees. So again, a little bit of a weakness, but we're going to get there. Some of the threats, I want to speak to what we as Mazamas value for first aid training. After this ICS 2022-2023 class graduates, there will no longer be an advanced wilderness first aid requirement for any of our advanced education programs at the Mazamas. ICS, AR, backcountry, none of those programs will have a requirement. And I feel that that's risky. We need a greater conversation in the Mazamas about what do we value for our members and when they go out to recreate versus privately or on climbs. So we will do, as First Aid Committee, we're going to start, you've seen a call for what are your WFA stories out there. We're going to start a campaign to educate the general population about historically how has first aid evolved in the Mazamas and where we are today. But each of our committees need to have a conversation about that. The First Aid Committee does not set the first aid requirements. By charter, we are to deliver the education required by the different committees. The other thing that I wanted to do mention is that Climb Committee Leadership Development Program does have advanced first aid requirements. That's our only pipeline that we really haven't spelled out. Some opportunities that we're looking at. We've gotten the feedback that the Mountain First Aid Skill Builder that we built, it's a internal to the Mazama's program. We think that there's a wonderful opportunity to look at a 40-hour national certification for advanced wilderness first aid, something that would have meaning outside of the Mazamas. So that's something that we are looking to explore for that. I do want to do a big plug for Support Your Mazama Education programs. We need to support each other's programs, right? Climb Committee supporting the FM 101 program, Climb Leader supporting ICS's instructors, but I do think it's very important that we do support each other in our programs. Last thing I want to talk about is that we have some upcoming WFA classes. Oh, it's upside down, thank you. We got some upcoming WFA classes. We've added additional classes this year. We're $100 below market for Knowles. Knowles is only able to offer 4 classes in the state of Oregon in the next 12 months. We're going to do 6, right? So it's a great opportunity for us. Registration's open. Go to www.mazamas.org/WFA. I also want to do a big plug for the MFA. We only do that twice a year. We are going to have the use of the lodge. Thank you, Mazama staff, for making sure that we will have access to that. And my last pitch is get your WFA story. If you've got a great story, let's hear about it, because those are going to be very valuable as we share our learnings with each other about why that's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Duncan. Next up, if I can hit the right button. Oh, I see what I did. It's all about where you put the mouse. Okay, next up we have Melinda, Hugo, and Intermediate Climbing School, ICS.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Melinda. I'm coordinating ICS this year. This year we're running a full class with 45 students, and we get to partake in all the social activities that we didn't get to last year. So we're very excited about that. We had a much higher than usual number of applicants this year. So there were a lot of, it was a really difficult process of selecting our class. There were a lot of really good climbers turned away. We've continued to make some small updates to our curriculum, which saw some pretty major changes in the 2021 to 22 class. And we're happy to share and collaborate with other climbing classes on curriculum to hopefully find more consistency across Mazama education. From last year's class, we had 13 students who went into the leadership development program. That's always something we're pushing and encouraging our students to do. And thus far, we've had plenty of climb leaders coming out to help at our sessions to help give evaluations for those people in leadership development. So we always appreciate that collaboration with Climb Committee. As Duncan mentioned, this is the last year that a first aid course will be tied to ICS completion. So first aid has never been included in the cost of ICS or included in the schedule of ICS, but it's been a requirement that students take that on their own to get an ICS badge. And ICS firmly believes in the importance of first aid. We want lots of people out there in the mountains who have first aid training. We just didn't feel the model was fair to ICS students or actually meeting the needs of all the organization. We believe first aid is a whole organization responsibility and shouldn't be tied to one single class. And also we are no longer requiring that ICS students assist with a BSEP class, though that happened last year and almost every ICS student still chose to assist with a BSEP class. it seems like a pretty ingrained part of Mazama culture, and we definitely are really encouraging people to do that. And I'd really like to thank the staff and Brendan for all the help in getting ICS started this year, and also to our many volunteers. It takes a whole lot of us to run ICS. So thank you everyone who helps in this class.
Thank you, Melinda. Next up, we have Brooke Harris to talk about our Mazama Lodge. Change places.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brooke Harris, representing the Lodge Committee. I want to thank Kayleen and all the staff, as well as Greg and Jesse and Charles, of course, who've had just endless conversations with us over the last year, and what a year it's been. Within this year, we've seen changes within our committee, we've seen changes within our staffing, we've seen so many changes just throughout the entire community of the Lodge. We've learned a lot over the last couple of years, especially just about how to manage this place, right? The facility itself, learning about programming, learning out how to make room for all of our members, all the programs that want access to it, because it's such an amazing place to learn and to experience Mount Hood. We hope to have even solved some problems structurally within the buildings just recently, and hopefully our men's room upstairs will remain dry and clean for the next several months of the rainy season. Continuing this next year, though, we're really excited about where we're going. We're going to continue to work closely with Kayleen and the rest of the staff, as well as with our executive committee. There's a number of things that we're really looking to focus on. We know that we've just announced that this will be a short-term closure for the Lodge, as we really focus on programming to make the Lodge as successful as possible, as soon as possible. Within that, we're excited to reopen and provide more ways for our volunteers, our members, and then most importantly, our programming to really take advantage of the space up there on the mountain. If you want to learn more, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, lodgecommittee@mazamas.org, or hit up either one of us. If you're on a committee and you're curious about within that committee what this Lodge can mean for you, like, we'd love to have that conversation also. The most important thing to us is to have the membership up there enjoying the space. Spearheading this effort, I'm going to be stepping out of the chairperson's role, and we have a new chairperson, Julia Williams, whose passion for the Lodge, for the mountain, is pretty much unparalleled in the 10 years that I've been working up there, as well as within this organization. And I couldn't be happy to be sticking around with a few others I see in the audience to help make this as successful as possible. This has been a joy of a year so far. It definitely had its challenges, but we've done a lot of really great work, and I think that everybody will appreciate, as was already kind of mentioned, a sort of a pivot to switch to a little bit more volunteer-led. And our volunteers have been so passionate already to really make this one of the best years from a volunteer standpoint that we've had up there. And the Lodge right now today looks and feels better than it has in a very long time, and we're super proud of that. So thank you so much for the time.
Getting my steps in today. All right, Barbara Weiss is up next with the nominating committee report. Take it away, lady.
Yes, ma'am. Hello. I'm Barbara Weiss. I am the chair of the nominating committee. There was a moment in late April when I thought being on the nominating committee is a lot like watching a horror film. You know the characters, you know the story arc, you know where you need to get, and you're wondering if everybody's going to make it safely. So this was in late April. This is about a month and a half before the committee needs to go to the executive council and present our full slate of candidates. And we weren't there yet. And we were ever so mindful of the fact that last year we did not have a contested election. So it was a bit of a nail biter, but we made it. We made it in part because of the commitment that everyone on the nominating committee has had to outreach in many different ways, made ever so much harder by the pandemic. And we've definitely saw some lingering effects of the pandemic, people feeling not so connected with the Mazamas anymore, and maybe moved on to do other things with other groups. And some uncertainty about what was happening with the Mazamas. But we made it, especially because Chris Brooks, Terry Donahue, Marty Hampson, Chris Jaworski, and Claire Tencher stepped up to the table when they were asked. They didn't make us beg. They said, yeah, you know, we're concerned about what's happening and we want to do something. And we also made it because Kirsten Jacobson and Tom Miller and myself stepped up to join the nominating committee for another round. And I just want to thank everybody who ran this year for the EC. It's not an easy thing, and you put your heart into it. And sometimes, you know, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't get it. And I've been in that position a couple of times. It's a bit of a bitter pill, but it doesn't matter because, you know, it's the right thing to do to support this amazing organization. And if we're going to make it another 125 years, we need people to step up. It's easy to sit back and kind of look at the board and say, oh, they're so white, they're so upper middle class, they're so this, they're so that, there's no diversity. But if you're out there, please raise your hand. The nominating committee would love to talk to you and share everything we know about the experience and about what we're sure you can bring to the table for the Mazamas. So thank you to our candidates for this year. Thank you to the committee. And we are looking forward to next year being even more possibly challenging, but we're here to meet that challenge. Thanks.
Okay, and now to talk about the work of the Outings Committee, we have Leigh Schwartz.
Hi, everyone. It's Lee, but
my apologies.
So I'm the chair of the Outings Committee, and we have a very terrific group of Rex Brinsback and Diane Foster, Dean Land, Rule Kurzet, and myself. And we were very pleased to be able to review, approve, and support 5 outings this year. And of course, the outings depend on our amazing outing leaders who put together a package of fun travel of 4 days or more for Mazama members and non-members. And this year we had outings to Death Valley in the beginning of April, led by Bob Breivogel. Later in April, we had a Hell's Canyon backpack led by Rex Brinsback. We had Rocky Mountain National Park in July, led by Sue Dimon. An Alaska, Southeast Alaska outing led by Larry Solomon in mid-August, and September, John Muir Trail backpack outing led by Gary Bishop. And the amazing thing was that the April 3rd to 10 outing had a high temperature one afternoon of 110 degrees. And the September 4 to 13 outing had to be interrupted, shortened because of a hailstorm of, you know, incredible magnitude. So, you know, it's always something when you get out in the mountains, as we all know, but we're doing our best to encourage outing leaders to step forward, and we'll help them put together an outing plan and get it before the committee and out to solicit participants. So thank you.
Thank you, Lee. So I heard from Ralph this morning on our research committee, who was hoping to be here himself to get to introduce Aaron, but unfortunately Ralph was the latest to draw the COVID straw. So he is recovering today, but I get the honor of announcing Aaron Havrigi, who is coming into the chair role for the research committee.
Thanks, Kayleen. And to be clear, Ralph, you're not off the hook yet. He has agreed to stay through the fall cycle as we roll into the spring. And I can't emphasize enough the amount of work that he has done over the last several years, along with research committee members who have rolled off. We have a new slate of folks, and it's a very exciting time. For anyone who doesn't know, the purpose of the research committee is to support the charter goal of soliciting and actually sharing scientific data that helps protect and preserve the alpine environments that we all love so much. And the way we do this is issue research grants. They're small, but they're very meaningful to the students and the researchers who are going after these monies. So Ralph has done a great job over the years of creating a blueprint. We're just going to go ahead and follow it for this year. We'll be issuing requests for proposals later this fall. The deadline will be shortly after the new year, and then the committee members will go through, each committee member goes through each proposal. We come together and then decisions are made and grants are issued in the spring. One thing we are going to do that we're hoping to do a little differently is that in addition to the reports that we ask the researchers to provide us, we also want to bring them in either in print form or in person to talk about their projects, how they're coming along, because researchers love talking about their research projects, and it's a great way to share the information with our membership. So I look very much forward to working with Ralph and the committee in this year. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Erin. We appreciate you. All right, next to talk about deep snow and ice, we have Ed Dyer and Jonathan Barrett.
Hi, this is Ed. I'm not certain if Jonathan was able to get on the call or not. Jonathan, are you there too? Oh, so it might just be me.
It might just be you, Ed.
So steep snow and ice, I think many of you know this is our second year as a subcommittee and running curriculum for Mazamas. We're very excited about what we've accomplished in those 2 years. This is now the Mazamas' most advanced training in alpine ice and snow and terrain. It's quite different than what was the people remember as ASI in the past. We're much more focused and shorter curriculum than that was done, but it also has a sort of a different focus, and we're doing some things that weren't done in the past. This year, we had more than 30 applicants to the SSI August skill builder that we do. Because we're doing a more focused curriculum than was done with ASI in the past, we're actually able to take 16 participants through our curriculum each year. And this year, we actually had several climb leaders as well as some Portland Mountain Rescue team members take our curriculum. So we were really excited to be spreading or to be mentoring people in the skills and techniques required in these steeper alpine environments. Let's see, I mean, just, maybe just to give a quick overview, we do sort of like some alpine decision making. We actually have quite a bit of focus on risk assessment, hazard assessment, strategies to deal with those in alpine environments. And then, of course, we also do a lot of rope work. We work a lot on practicing multi-pitch efficiency, trying to help the participants speed up and become very systematic in the way they move from simul-climbing to pitch climbing to rappelling to building anchors, all in the interest of increasing their safety margins. And, of course, then we go and take it up on the Elliott Glacier, and they get to practice it for a 2-day weekend field session. They play snow protection, ice protection, build anchors, use them all, climb on them. We had just a really great time up there this year. And we didn't just have a great time, we've had some really excellent feedback, which we'll probably incorporate into changes for 2023. And I guess the only final thing I want to say in closing, we're actually now also hosting some open climb nights at the MMC. We did our first one in 2022. And we're hoping to do this on a more regular basis. We kind of open it up to the entire Portland climbing community. We had more than 10 people come out, and we opened up the foam artificial ice wall. So some people are out there swinging an ice tool for the first time on a vertical surface, kicking crampons into the foam ice wall. And we hope this will be a really great way to introduce Mazamas to the greater Portland climbing community. We had several non-Mazama come out for the first open climb night we did. So that was really fun. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ed. All right, next up, Scott Stevenson and Trail Trips.
Thank you, Kayleen. Thanks. I'm Scott Stevenson. I'm the relatively new chair of the Trail Trips Committee. The Trail Trips Committee oversees and tries to sponsor and offer our biweekly Rambles program that starts at the RAI store, day hikes in the surrounding Portland area, and backpacks. And I guess this year, to summarize, our strengths were our Rambles program is still popular and very healthy. I know we had over 3,000 participants this year, over 400 different Rambles, finding their way up into the West Hills and other interesting places to walk. That, as this year, is probably our largest raiser of revenue because it has been so popular and healthy. Jackie Briggs leads that, and she's doing a great job. Next strength is our hike leader training program. Bill Resley teaches the course, beats the bushes for people who might be interested in getting hike leaders, coordinates with the first aid committee to make sure they get the right first aid training. And he has a consistent and healthy trying to develop our pipeline. And we're also happy that we were able to offer around the mountain this year our Labor Day weekend circumnavigation to Mount Hood, which was, we're very dependent on the lodge for that. And I really want to thank Julia and the lodge committee and Ryan for hosting us and doing a great job. All the participants were very happy with the experience. Final thing we did, we're also responsible for trail tending and trail maintenance. And I know we had 15 volunteers this year, donate over 221 hours working on the Mazama Trail on the north side of Hood. We're still have finally cleared out some of the downed trees from the Dollar Fire. And if anyone's been on that trail recently, it's pretty much now a straight, pretty clean shot all the way up to those meadows that we all love to spend time on. Weaknesses, the biggest weakness is pretty much our main job, which is offering day hikes. We are not offering the number of day hikes that we did pre-COVID. We've had a hard time. Many of our hike leaders seem to have become disengaged. And that's what Bill Resley and I know the first aid committee and myself, it's going to be our primary, our number one goal for next year. It will be to, we've got to develop and refill our hike leader pipeline so we can offer more of those day hikes on Saturdays and Sundays that we used to in the past. Other goals for next year, we hope to offer a full-size round the mountain if we can make the numbers work. This year we sort of got blindsided by rental car fees, which sort of threw our budget out of whack on that. And hopefully that won't be a problem next year. And in our committee meeting next week, we're going to be discussing possibly offering the used equipment, having the used equipment sale again in 2023, which was traditionally one of our largest raisers of revenue. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish next year. Thank you very much, everyone.
So many amazing committees doing so much great work. Next up, we have Daphne Lohr and Families Mountaineering 101.
My name is Daphne Lohr. I guess I'm going to call myself, for now, I'm going to call myself the vice chair of the Mazama's Families Committee. Our current chair is Rich Hunter, and he's on a flight to New Jersey tonight. I was last year's FM 101 coordinator. The Families Committee has actually primarily been focused on running the FM 101 course. We had, just like many, had to kind of rebuild the program a little bit. Last year, I nicknamed my class Operation Revival because we were coming back out of COVID. And so we've been focusing primarily on the course. So last year I was the coordinator. This year we have a new coordinator, and I'm basically training her and starting to move into the committee chair, at least doing some of the duties of the committee chair, and we have not formally transitioned out of Rich being our chair. Anyway, so I'm going to talk primarily about FM 101 and then a little bit about the committee's goals. The class, for those of you who don't know about us, because we're a pretty small class compared to BSEP or ICS, our course objectives are the same as BSEP. The goal is for our graduates to be eligible for the same types of activities within the organization that a BSEP grad would be able to do, as long as there isn't an age limit. I think that one of the most unique things about our class is that this is truly a families class. So we make sure to let our students know, or people who are applying to the class know, that this is not a place for someone to drop off their kid to learn rock climbing. This is a place for families to come together with youth and with parents or any other guardian who want to learn mountaineering skills together, either as a duo, or we've had a family of 5 did the class last year. It's oftentimes one parent and one youth, or one guardian and one youth. So it really is, it is kind of a very unique program, I think, that we offer here. We are very small. Like I said, compared to some of the other programs, last year we had 32 students. This year we deliberately scaled it down and we have 25 students, just because since we are working with half the class approximately is about our youth, ages 8 to 14. We do need a pretty high ratio of assistant and leaders to students. It's hard to turn people away, but last year we were turning applicants away, and this year we had to turn applicants away. There's a lot of interest in the community in this type of program. So we start we basically break the class down into 3 segments between September and February. Similar to those of you who are familiar, most people are familiar with BSEP. We start with rock skills in September and October, move into navigation, some very basic first aid and avalanche awareness. And then in the winter, we do a snow session up at the lodge and at Timberline. So the skill objectives of the course are mirrored with those of BSEP. We just teach it in a little bit of a different format. And then we do a capstone trip at Smith out in May, and we do monthly climb nights at the MMC in between so that people can keep their skills up to get ready to go out to Smith. We've had a lot of success recruiting students. Like I said, we've had to turn students away for the last 2 years that I've been involved in the coordinator aspect. And we've had a lot of interest in assistants coming back. Our biggest challenge right now is leadership in terms of anchor builders and safety officers. The reason for that is that Mazama's families used to also offer a sport leader class in the spring. Which is not the same as the same parallel as ICS, and that it really just focuses on rock sport lead. And that class has not yet been revived within our committee because we've been focused on FM 101. And so what happens with our community is that as the kids grow up, the parents then can go and climb with their buddies. And we lose our leadership. And so we're really working on we really want to work more with the Mazama's organization as a whole and try to work with, the leadership training program, advanced rock and ICS grads. The truth is that we could really use that kind of support. We have a lot of people who can coordinate the program, but it's when we go out to our 3 big field sessions, our 2 weekends out at Horse Thief and our weekend up at Timberline, when we could really use support from Mazama's leadership as a whole, so that we can make sure that our courses that we set up for our students are safe. So we had a great weekend out at Horse Thief this past weekend. We actually had we had a lot of leadership. We had a lot of assistance. Our ratio was great. We were able to, every single parent that was enrolled in the class was belay tested by the end of the first day out at Horse Thief, which is our goal, so that the parents don't need backup anymore. And we had a lot of really happy youth that were motivated to come back and learn to rappel. our rappel session, unfortunately, our climb leader and safety officer for rappel session recently broke his ribs. And we're not sure that he's going to be able to be our climb leader. We've reached out to Leora Gregory has helped us find somebody who's come to Sunday, but I'm going to close by saying if there's anybody out there that wants to come out to Horse Thief on October 15th and help us out, we would really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to watch these spunky 8-year-olds out there rapping for the first time. They're pretty stoked. Thank you so much for listening and for supporting our program.
Terrific. Thanks, Daphna. Okay, and last up tonight, we have John Reddick to give the report from our Conservation Committee.
Thank you. Conservation attempts to have 2 or 3 presentations of a fairly large scale per year. And we actually accomplished 2 out of 3. You saw Elemental a while back. We were the Portland premiere of that film. Quite a monumental fire related. It wasn't even the last couple of years. It was shot. It's talking about the role of fire, in the Western landscape. And also we did a presentation on the Blue Mountain Trail with our partner, Greater Hills Canyon Council. One more is in the queue. Rail Bears Love Burns. Rail Bears Love Burns. That is upcoming. It's also, well, Elemental was Craig Law Center sponsor, and Rail Bears is Craig Law Center. Did a number of bulletin articles. You might have noted the last few years we've gravitated more toward, what you as individual Mazamas can do, and this continued to trend. I think if I were going to name one trend, it was pushing for alternative energy, electric vehicles, etc. We still care about the outdoors, the areas we recreate in, but we're also trying to deal with what human impact has on our planet, and especially what the Mazamas can do about that. We haven't pushed, other than that, we haven't pushed too hard on our carbon neutral initiative. We need to restart effort on that. And we didn't give grants this year. Unfortunately, we had to respect the position of our finances, and we forego making conservation grants. We do hope to resume that next year. Finally, we tracked a lot of legislation, endorsed some measures, signed on some others, etc. And last but not least, we did a very critical assessment of our affiliation with national organizations, and in particular, the Outdoor Alliance, which Mazamas has been in since 2017. We made a recommendation to Executive Council, and they took our recommendation seriously. We recommended to drop our affiliation with Outdoor Alliance. Not just a matter of the $7,000 a year, I know that did help the treasurer, but also just the fit to our organization. We didn't feel they quite fit our mission. And that's all I have.
Can we just take a minute and give a big round of applause to all of our committees? You guys are the heartbeat of Mazamas, and we could not be who we are doing what we do without each and every one of you. So thank you so, so much. We want to wrap up tonight before we announce our election results by kind of taking stock of where we are. We've been talking a lot this year about our situation as a nonprofit and how we get ourselves ready for a vibrant future. We are calling that initiative the Climb Ahead, and Greg Scott on our board, who is continuing on with us on the board, is going to come up tonight and share some of our thoughts about where we are and where we're headed.
Thank you, Kayleen, and thanks for everyone sticking around on the Zoom and sticking around in the room. So Jesse mentioned that there's a focus assessment that gave us 11 recommendations to improve our organization. I just want to briefly mention what those recommendations are that we haven't worked on yet, but are coming up in the future, and then talk a little bit about the work that we've done this year and what we're going to do with that going forward. So the 5 assessment recommendations remaining have to do with strategic planning, building an effective development committee, meaning working on increasing our fundraising efforts, building a more robust board composition, recruiting a more diverse board, addressing issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the organization. And then also there's a recommendation to solidify community guidelines, protocols, and consequences for unacceptable behaviors. So when we received the focus assessment from Page 2 partners, we got together as a board and figured out what we wanted to prioritize. And then we took that information and presented it in a couple of town hall meetings. And I appreciate everybody who's able to come out to those town hall meetings. And from that town hall meeting, from those town hall meetings, what we learned from the membership who was listening to us is that one of the big things we need to accomplish in this journey before we can do any of those 5 things I just talked about, or any of the things that we took on this year, is to look at our bylaws and look at bylaws change. We took that recommendation and hired outside counsel at Stoll Reeves and have them take a look at our current bylaws, and just with a fresh look, not necessarily looking back on how past bylaws change initiatives went, but what really needs to be updated in our bylaws and what needs to move us forward as an organization. And from that, we took recommendation from council to not just amend our bylaws or make little tweaks here and there, but to actually introduce a whole new set of bylaws. And so I want to announce here that we will be introducing a proposal in the next bulletin on November 1st. It'll be a whole new set of amended and revised bylaws, and there'll be a special election to vote on those bylaws on January 31st. So I like to frame things as a climb or a journey. And it could be easy to say, all right, January 31st, everybody's going to vote on these bylaws. We're gonna have lots of conversations between now and January 31st on what the bylaws changes mean and what the goals of those bylaws changes are and how that's gonna impact the organization. But it's not gonna be where we declare a victory or where we high-five each other, because really all the work that the board's done this year has been, let's put it in the context of planning a climb, has been the research. What route do we want to select? Who's going to be on our team? Are there any special considerations for this route? Has anybody ever done it before? What research do we need to do? That's all the planning that we've put in just to the bylaws change. Once we have the bylaws proposal out there for all of you to take a look at and consider, that's just driving to the trailhead in this story. So January 31st will be our arrival at the trailhead. And the reason I want to frame it that way is there are really 3 goals and 3 reasons that I want to focus on why we need the bylaws change before we can move on any of these other 11 recommendations. And that's, we're not going to be able to hire an executive director until we get this bylaws change done. No executive director is going to look at our organization today and say, yeah, that's an organization I want to come lead. At least not the kind of executive director that we need to lead us through the time that we're going through right now. Number 2, we need to continue to stabilize our finances. We know that we've made a lot of cost cuts, but I don't think we can make any more without reducing the quality of our programming. And that will have an impact if we cut any more. And we need to develop new revenue streams. And then finally, we need to adapt to changes to set us up for the future. So as you heard Guy mention, we're running into issues with the US Forest Service on acquiring special use permits, and that's going to be a new challenge for us. And some of the bylaws changes could help us navigate those waters. So once we get to the trailhead, that's when we're going to be looking at, hopefully, hiring a new executive director. And that period of time is going to be getting from the trailhead to the base camp. And then once we get from the base camp, once we get to the base camp, then we can decide whether the conditions are right, and we're going to go for the summit, and we're going to start working on a new vision and work on planning for a strategic plan with a new executive director. So I just want to finish by saying this is really a call to action for the Mazamas. We as the leadership will be asking a lot of our volunteers and donors in the coming year, but at a minimum, I expect everyone to come out and vote for this bylaws change. It's the minimum thing you can do. And I think The only way that we make this important decision as an organization is everybody comes out and votes. I want everybody to carefully consider all the materials that we put out about the bylaws change. As Jesse mentioned, we're going to release the whole focus assessment. I think that'll be very eye-opening for everybody. But really, it is one of the most important decisions that Mazama has made for itself in its long history. And I also want to acknowledge, I believe we have the right team right now with the right skills and knowledge to get us there. Kayleen brings 25 years of nonprofit experience, and her organization has been invaluable. The board that has existed this year, I do want to give special thanks to those departing board members who spent so much time on helping us plan this trip. You know, I guess I get the honor of being on the team that drives to the trailhead at least. You know, hopefully we can find the right executive leader out there for us. So I just want to close this thing with these proposed changes, we can make ourselves even better and continue to provide a future that supports the mission of the Mazamas. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to the coming year.
Thanks, Greg. Promise and possibility. That's what you guys have right now. There's so much possibility. And you just have to, you know, it is like a route choice, right? You're making those critical decisions that are going to frame the future. But I'm excited for you and confident that working together and sharing and asking questions, we'll talk about the changes in the bylaws, what they mean, and how they'll position the organization to capture all the potential that you have available. So I'm excited to get to be with you for that part of the dialogue. Okay, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to find out who is going to join our board. So as I invite Ardell up from the nominating committee to share the results, I do want to join Greg, and just a huge thanks to our board members who are stepping off as of this moment. Amy, I'm looking at you sitting right in front of me, and so many others who just have given so much energy. So thank you to those who are stepping off, and I'm excited to find out who's joining us.
Cue the music.
Drum roll, please.
So we opened our voting on September 3rd, and we closed it at 3 p.m. today. Our electorate size was 2,796. There were 759 legal ballots cast, which is 27.1% of the electorate. That gives us a sense of promise of how we can build and grow and get people engaged. For the executive council directors, Chris Brox had 331 votes, Terry Donahue 558, Marty Hansen 384, Chris Jaworski 382, Claire Tencher 466. So for the coming year, your new executive council directors are Terry Donahue, Marty Hansen, and Claire Tencher. For the amazing nominating committee, we had 3 people running, and they all got elected. Kirsten Jacobson got 626 votes, Tom Miller 625, and the fabulous Barbara Weiss got 635. Thank you very much. Congratulations to everyone.
Yeah, yay. Just coordinating some logistics. So congratulations to Marty and to Terry and to Claire. We are super excited to begin working with you and having you help us make that drive to the trailhead. So exciting times ahead. I think I forgot to continue advancing the slides. So with that, I just want to thank you very much, everybody, for hanging with the meeting tonight. It always takes a little while to go through all of the content in the annual meeting, but I hope that you found it worth it. It really gives you a chance to wrap your mind around just how much this organization is doing all the time. So thank you again for your dedication. For those who are on the call, who were just elected to the board, hang with us and we will get you a link. The current and new board members now will head upstairs and we will work with the nominating committee to elect our board positions for the coming year. For everybody else, thank you so much. Good night. Grab a cookie. Thank you for all of you that are online, and we will make the assessment report and this recording available to all of you tomorrow. Take care.